solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States.
Some of the most ridiculous things that I ever said is that seasoned chief, the 30-year guy. Some of the most ridiculous things that I ever said were to airmen and NCOs and even young officers that were getting out. He said, Chief, I'm getting out. What should I do? And sit up straight at your interview, put some civilian words in your resume. Don't sell yourself short. You got all the tools. Go get them, kid. Hit them on the back. Ridiculous advice. But I have the tools, right? I wrote in a blog that I know that I'm smarter than the chief of staff of the Air Force and the chief master sergeant of the Air Force in one particular area, and that's this transition thing. Because you don't know until you do it. And the DOD works really hard at it, but they don't understand it. And they don't really consult with the right people, which we'll talk a little bit about. So as I'm coming up to getting out, the only thing I have is TAP. Oh, but because I'm a chief, I get to go to ETAP, which ETAP means that we get to wear civilian clothes, and we don't have to wear a tie. And we're going to talk about what your wages are worth and some balance on that type of stuff. Here's what they don't tell you. They don't tell you that you're going to lose your sense of camaraderie. They don't tell you that you're going to lose team. They don't tell you that you're going to run up against such a gap between who you are and how they perceive you. And you're going to have a problem with purpose. You're going to have a problem with a sense of purpose and finding that purpose. Because every day you get up and put on the uniform, there's absolutely no doubt what your purpose is and where you are in life. And you got battle buddies and wingmen and shipmates and fellow Marines and Ranger buddies and all the stuff that goes along with that. I didn't know any of that. All I knew was I needed a space. So I did. I made all the mistakes. Billy, I screwed it up. This is why you write a book. People don't write a book because they had home runs. They write a book because they went 0 for 30. So I had just over 4 months terminal leave. I took 29 days of it and went back to work. And wrong. I have a lot of baggage. We're going to talk probably here in a minute about PTSD, moral injury, and the pieces that go along with that from combat time and others. And so I had a lot of baggage, which there's nobody on the outside that's even qualified to talk to me about my baggage. So I got to handle that one on my own. Don't do that. In fact, I think everybody that comes out of the United States military, whether you've served 4 years or 40, should have a relationship with some sort of therapist. And if you got to go through 7 of them to find the right one, then go through 7 of them. Just do it. So we need to take that whole tough guy thing and what are people going to think about me? That's all got to go out the window, because for you to move forward, that's important. Except I didn't do that either. So bad. My 3 favorite therapists when I got out were Jim, Johnny, and Jack. Pretty reliable guys, right? Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, Johnny Walker. So those are pretty reliable guys. And they always get you where you want. And they always make you forget what you don't want to remember. But that's a slippery slope. And about 44 of us a day are on that slippery slope to the point where we do self-elimination, and that's just not acceptable. And we'll touch on that too. I didn't have any anxiety. I just needed a space. I knew that I was going 1,000 miles an hour. Think about it. You're command chief of a numbered air force. You're going 1,000 miles an hour. You got an executive assistant. You're on airplanes. You're back and forth. And it didn't stop. It didn't stop up until the last day. There was people around, but you got to remember the people that were around that had been out for a while, they were still institutionalized because they were GS 14s or 13s or 11s or 10s, right? So they're still in the acronym world. They're still speaking Martian. They're still on at least a satellite of Mars, which we were living on. They had never gone to Klingon. So I never had, as I was coming up, I never had anybody pull me aside and say, there's a big new planet out there. It doesn't speak the language you speak. In fact, it's really not receptive to you. And you're going to get into situations that are going to you're going to be frustrated. You're going to feel disrespected. There's a lot of institutions that are working on getting veterans jobs because they think that's the gateway. Well, right now, 43 out of 100 are going to leave their jobs in the first year because of some of these phenomenons that I'm talking about. It's because and I forgive the civilian institutions because we haven't trained them. Anytime in failure, 2 things our country's really good at. One is, in catastrophic failure, they're good at public-private partnership to solve everything. COVID, 9/11, Katrina, go through the big things. It's all been public-private partnerships to solve stuff. We're not doing that with our veteran issues. Give you some numbers here in Montana. This is where I retired. Didn't know these numbers when I got here. 12% of Montana is veterans. We're number one or number two in veteran population in the United States. There's an Alaska component in there, but Alaska is a kind of an outline. We are number one or number two in veteran suicide, number one and number two in veteran substance abuse and driving under the influence, and we're number 44 in services. So how do you close that gap? Well, what drives veterans to these aberrant things, right? Especially the substance abuse and the suicide. Well, when you come out of an institution like we were in, you need to have something that you can identify with, especially after 30 years. Every day I got up, what did I have? I had my name on one side, and I had my United States Air Force on the other side. And sometimes a patch or a flag on your shoulder. You knew what you belonged to. I had a battle buddy. I had somebody that spoke the language. I had somebody that understood the acronyms. I had that person in my life constantly. I had camaraderie. I had unit cohesion, all the things that go along with that. I had camaraderie. I had team. And the biggest thing that I had was deference to expertise. I had people that didn't look at my sleeves to see what my rank was. They knew what my capability was and whatever the problem set was. And if that was my problem, I solved it. Even when you're 20 years old and you're leading a security squad of 3 other guys, you're the guy. And I was walking into a world that did not have a Napoleonic structure, did not communicate the same way. There's a hierarchy. People feel entitled as they move up through it, and directors only talk to managers when they're talking down, and senior executives talk to directors when they're only talking down. There's not a lot of ability to lead up. And if you are doing critical thinking and you're given the no kidding straight scoop on stuff, sometimes you just get dismissed from rooms, even if you're the subject matter expert, which was my experience in COVID. It's a whole other conversation. So you tend to go rely on your 3 buddies, right? You can. We all do. I will tell you that I don't think, and this is a bold statement, it's only Dave. I do research on almost everything I talk about, but this one, I'm confident enough that I'm close enough that I think it's a legitimate thing to bring into conversation. So our nation today created 1,300 new veterans with their families. So it's just that we release the population of my little town that I grew up in every day out into society with no training. Their employers aren't trained. They don't understand us. They don't understand the dynamics. They don't understand the things that we come with. And I would say almost every veteran that's coming out has either a combination of, or either some form of PTSD, some form of moral injury, or some aberrant relationship with substance. If you look at things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, people can find themselves in there, right? Whatever they are, if they're a minority or wherever they are. And that's a hot button acronym. People get emotional over that based on their beliefs and those type of things. But if you just take DEI for what it is, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? It's just a recognition of these things and that they're out there and they cause us to have to navigate a certain way. Somebody asked me today, Billy, literally an hour and a half ago, they said, where does veterans and vet ready, where does it fall into DEI? And I said, well, it falls somewhere between the I and the B, right? Because if you add a B on there for belonging, so inclusivity is being able to, if you're the first female in an all-male golf club, then you're included. But it doesn't mean you belong because you're sitting in the corner and nobody's talking to you, right? So you have to belong. And I said, really, in DEI, if you take veterans, the I is not for inclusivity, it's for invisible. Because you can't pick us out of a crowd. A lot of the issues that we have are not, when people think about veterans, if you say disabled veteran, and they look at you and they're like, but you have all your fingers and toes and arms and legs. You don't have a scar across your face. It's not what that's about. By the way, most of us have things that can't get through metal detectors, but they can't see. But then there's this thing here. And this is one of the most important things in our lives, right? And if you think of what it takes for us to defend our nation, to truly follow orders and to do the right thing, It is counterintuitive to most of our more moral foundations. You want the moral injury story? I'll give it to you. Being exclusive on the book. I've done it in a keynote and told it in a couple other places, but I'll give it to you. The flag that's behind me actually plays into this story. It plays into Max Fab too, because the bottom of that flag says Maximum Fabulous, which was my insistence on our organizational attitude when we were in Iraq. I think it played to keeping people mentally, physically, and emotionally sound. We're in Iraq in 2008, and so I did this speech. I did this as a keynote speech, and there was actually a guy in the audience that he remembers he was there, and this affected him. So when you talk about morality, now think about a bunch of medics, everything from doctors, nurses, and clinical medics, and then support medics. We all have an oath, right? We wear the caduceus on our stuff. We have an oath, right? It's first do no harm, and we take care of people. Just war in itself is counterintuitive to what we do, except we take the spoils of combat and try to make it right. Well, in 2008, there's a place called Sadr City. Sadr City is a suburb of Baghdad. And the bad guys had really settled in there in 2008. This is during the surge. And they were lobbing a bunch of stuff into the green zone. And it was irritating enough that they wanted to clean it up. And they looked at a lot of options, and there's civilian inhabitants there that are worried. So the only way to do that is to go house to house, street to street, house to house, warn everybody, get them out of there, and then go clean it out. So now you're looking at Ramadi, Fallujah, these bigger ops. Military doctrine for medical people at that time is to clear the beds. This is the title of the chapter. Is to clear the beds, which means you empty your hospital out. You make it pristine, like it's the first day that it ever opened. Every bed's empty. Every operating room's ready to go. All the blood is fully stocked on the shelves. And everything is pristine, because when you go do an operation like that, you're going to generate a lot of casualties quick. And so you need to start from scratch. Well, at Balad, it was the everything came through us to get back to Germany. And so for us to clear out the Americans and the soldier, sailor, airmen, Marines, and our coalition partners, pretty easy. Just generate more aircraft, put them on aircraft, send them to Germany. What most people don't know is what we took care of in that hospital was all the civilian casualties, everything from 6 months old, 6-week-old kids to old men, and the enemy. And we, at that time, had about a dozen people that were in our intensive care unit with adjuncts, intubation, things to keep them alive, machines to keep them alive. And we were the only hospital in the whole entire country that had this capability, level 1 trauma capability to do that. And they had been there so long that not only did we know their names and who they were and about them and their stuff, their lives, but we had made accommodations for their families to come. So we knew their families, we knew all these type of things. Well, clear the beds means clear the beds. It comes in an op order. Just like anything else, it comes in an operations order. And in the op order, it says clear the beds by this time. Well, for us to clear the beds, we had to move all of these people to a hospital in Baghdad, a civilian hospital in Baghdad. We did not have the ability to keep them alive. And in fact, quite frankly, if they showed up with the stuff that we did, they shut all the machines off and pulled all the tubes out. And if you lived, they took care of you, and if you died. And so if we move these people, all 12 people are going to die, right? And we're in the decision-making process of this. We tell everybody, we got to move these people. Well, what do you think that looked like in the institution? You think everybody was like, yeah, let's just get them on the helicopters and get them out of here. No, there was, to the point, I can't say anybody got physical, but it was really darn close. But there was a lot of high emotion. We were investing in these people for one, and two is we were going to euthanize people, all under the guise of military orders and doctrine. And now we're going to euthanize people. And I'm the chief. It's the boss and me, right? And everybody else that had to execute this thing. And I'm a nurse. And I've got the oaths. And I've been taking care of people my whole life. And now we're going to euthanize people. And we got the order in our hand that tells us to do it. It's okay. So Billy, we put all those people on our airplane. We killed them. We sent them away and killed them. And we never did the operation that canceled it.
And how long did it take you to go seek help for that?
Too long. Oh, I jumped. Jim and Johnny and Jack were great for a while until I got physically ill to the point where I almost died, and then I had to freaking shift. I will tell you that I am a whole lot better, but I still have my moments where I get into dark places, and they are because of therapy and some other things. And my team, I have a life team. I have a life team. And in some ways, I probably had built that life team even though I was struggling. They have skill bridge now where if the commander will let you go up to 6 months, you can go work for a civilian organization. And the civilian employer gets free labor, you get some immersion. But if that employer is not vet ready, then you're not having an experience. You're just looking at maybe this is a job I want. And if the employer likes you, maybe they'll hire you on. But it still means that in a year, odds are about half are going to quit because it's this environment thing, the other things that we need. And that doesn't come with the immediacy of transition. It comes with realizing it. You apparently through your story, you had a concept in your head that if I just have these three things, I'll be fine. And then when you got something that looked like it, you went, oh, I'm jacked up. And then you probably thought it was just you. And then when you think it's just you, don't talk to anybody about it because you say, if I say it out loud, nobody's going to be able to relate to me because I'm over here and I'm all messed up and everybody else is perfectly fine.
It felt selfish because I got the best version of what I thought. Like, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. And then I got there. And then it felt really selfish to tell someone that I'm still sad, even in what I thought was success. Like, I was like, I can't communicate this with people, or I can't talk about it because that's so unbelievably selfish of me, because so many veterans do not, like, and I don't want this to sound like I'm bragging, but like to say, like, so many veterans are not as lucky as me when it comes to getting the things that I was able to get. And so then I was like, well, I can't talk about this because someone else is way worse off than me, and people need to worry about that guy or gal, not me. And it took me a long time to seek help through that because I just didn't feel worthy of it.
It's the Bruce Springsteen song about glory days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you think about, I don't know, I really resonate with, I'm probably going to do it and I haven't, but I think I need a hat.
Uh-huh.
And I always said, I don't need a hat. I don't need to walk around with I'm a veteran hat on and that kind of thing. But I love the guys who wear the hats because I'm straight over. I'm beeline over to them. What's your story? What are you
Go
doing?
talk to him. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my father-in-law died at 90. That's been a few years. This guy lived to be 90 years old, raised a great family. The guy was a great human being. My wife would tell you, yeah, you liked my dad, but you didn't know him. That's with all of our parents. But not that he was a bad dad. When you're a daughter of a man, it's different than being a son-in-law for a lot less time. That guy did 5 years in the Army, went in during the Korean War, did 5 years in the Army. He was the only guy out of his basic training that went to France. He went to France. Everybody else went to Korea during the Korean War. Mm-hmm. And he did 5 years in France and got out. That guy, you could talk to him about his whole entire life, his travels, everything that he has done, and he identified with those 5 years in his life. It was that important to him. That was, especially when I was around. When I was around, it was full on war story, military stories. There I was, Germany, France, wherever he was at. Military stories. These guys with hats, that's what they identify with. That was the peak. It's the glory day, right? It was the peak in their life. You know why? It's when they were the most accepted. It's when they were the most respected. It was when they had the most responsibility. It's when they were the most successful. It's when they left legacy. It was when they had people around them that their social environment was full of social capital. It paid off dividends every day. And when you put the uniform on and went to work, you were going to get better because of the people you were around. And for some reason, from the time he got out to the end of his life, he never truly felt that again.
Yeah, I think it's hard for a lot of people. I think that your purpose in life, your purpose and your camaraderie are so easily given to you in the military that we get them at such a young age where it's like, I didn't have to think about what my purpose was, who my friends were going to be, what kind of circles I wanted to hang out in. I didn't have to think about any of those, like community and purpose, like two of the biggest life-giving things in a human's existence.
Right.
I didn't have to think about either of those things until I got out of the military.
Right.
And figuring that out for yourself is scary and it's hard. And so I think for a lot of people, when they get out of the service, they're just ill-equipped to answer those very big, very scary questions. And so you just automatically default to the time in your life when you had both of those things in ready supply.
I think the sense of purpose is something that you need to define your new purpose, which I found by now, right? It's what I'm doing. You need to find a new purpose. And then you need to figure out what that environment looks like. You need to either find the environment and include yourself in it, or build the environment and be part of it, whichever it is. And then stay in the purpose. So one is define what the heck you want to do. I know what you're looking for. And I'm not going to give it to you because I don't know if I've completely figured it out. That sense of purpose thing is going to wane. It's going to wane. It's going to wane. Let's go back to step one. You get out and you come and see a guy like Dave and you say, what are my challenges? And I'm going to tell you, you're going to struggle with what your purpose is. And you're probably going to end up doing 3 or 4 or 5 different things until you finally settle into something that's purposeful that you can identify with. But I think it's experimentation.
Hey, everybody. I really hope that you liked this supercut of the Post-Military Podcast. If you did and you want to see more, I would recommend that you check out the whole episode, which is here on YouTube and also on multiple different podcasting platforms. If you like this and you want to support the channel, I would ask that you give the video a like, subscribe, and share the content with those who might need to hear it. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.